Alright guys, such comic again. I hope you're doing well and enjoying all day. So far, the important games go down this evening. OpTic versus FaZe to determine which teams are going to make it to the winners bracket for Major 3 and which teams are not. OpTic could still make it, even if they lose tonight, but the permutations here are very interesting and we're certainly going to dive into them. And if OpTic end up in the losers bracket, and especially if they don't make it to the World Championship, that's when questions are raised to what they might want to do in the off-season. Sib says on stream that his dream team, with all the circumstances going around the league right now, remains OpTic Gaming. And if that was to potentially happen, is that one of the key moves they might need to make after big discussions around potentially OpTic Sib over the last couple of years? Maybe that could be in the future. Very much enjoyed to your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. I greatly appreciate it. Starting here because Dashy turned 26 yesterday. Happy birthday to him. He was replying to Kismet, and here we go. NYSL ex Zinnycat fan says Kismet to OpTic because this is always a talking point, isn't it? Whenever OpTic are struggling, whenever any players in OpTic's replies, people are talking about it, but maybe fair enough. Look, I don't think OpTic Kismet would happen. I don't think it would necessarily be the move, certainly not right now, but of course there's talk about the off-season if this continues for OpTic as it stands, especially if, let's say, they make it to champs, but they place top 6 or something, and the World Cup doesn't go very well, what might they do then from there? Because especially if these Saudi organizations are coming in, I mean, how many opportunities might there be? We're going to talk about Sib in a second, but there has been some talk. Pred is now on Falcons. Maybe in the off-season, Falcons decide, hey, Sib, do you want to come along, form the duo again with Pred? That could be an upgrade in terms of talent on what they're currently working with, sure. But if OpTic are also trying to come knocking, what does that mean? What does the money say? How much is the prestige of playing for an organization like OpTic? That's certainly still involved. So there's lots of pieces to this puzzle. I do want to quickly touch on what happened on the OpTic Halo tournament yesterday out there in Texas as well, because Formal and the team, I mean, it wasn't pretty actually. They went down to Nemesis in their group. They had to play Shopify Rebellion round 1 of the bracket. They lost. They went down to the losers bracket and they made a run all the way through yesterday and have made it to the Sunday just about. They reverse swept that Nemesis team in the final decider game to get to the Sunday. But it's not exactly been pretty. I mean, it's the usual suspect on the championship Sunday here at the Halo Major. We have, as expected, Shopify and FaZe on the upper side, and then it's OpTic and Space Station on the lower side. So, crucial series. We'll see how it goes for OpTic, as of course this team was formed to be the best team in the game, right? Taking the pieces away from that World Championship winning Space Station team last year to try and get even better. So far this year, it's not seemed so clear that's going to work out, but time will tell. Today's a big day at the Halo Major, and of course, next month's event in Texas, again, DreamHack Dallas, I'm pretty sure there's also going to be Halo in attendance there. Big series yesterday was Falcons versus FaZe. This could have been incredibly crucial for the seeding, and it still is, to be fair, but especially if FaZe had lost, it would have made today's game even the tastier. But Falcons are kind of in this weird spot where their hardpoint is so much better than it was before. But their search is, is it worse than the full Saudi team? Possibly. And then their control is certainly not much better, to be honest. So, look, they're able to be competitive because their respawns, at least their hardpoints, are really strong. But in the other game modes where FaZe are good, really, Falcons had not much chance, and they, to be fair, they nearly won the red card hardpoint too, and then who knows what happens in a game 5, although I was still certainly back in FaZe. But as Drazah says, GG's Falcons, 1-3-1, need to keep working on hardpoint. I think that Simp did a tweet as well to say that, look, we actually really needed that one. It was a really important win for FaZe, and now, based on that victory, they'll be fine. I think no matter what happens today, I think they'll be okay, but we'll have a look at the numbers at the end of the video, actually, because there are some, as I say, permutations where things get real interesting tonight in terms of who makes it to the winners bracket, but I don't think that many people are going to doubt FaZe all that much. But their hardpoint is definitely gettable at, and OpTic will be looking to take advantage of that for sure this evening. Pred, of course, played much better than he has done lately. Look, I think what we are seeing a little bit of here is return to Seattle Pred, because look, is Pred playing for kills a bit sometimes? He's just roaming the map playing for kills? Yeah, but also that's how he does his best work often, and it seems like he has the freedom on this team now to just do that, play the way that he wants to play, the return of Lay G and stuff people are saying. And look, is that winning COD? It can be. I think it's worked in the past, and that's the way that Pred maybe feels like he can get the most out of his own game. And if Clay's happy with it, and it's working in the respawns, then you're probably not going to tell him to stop. Of course, this was that tweet that Clay did now on the 3rd of April, when people were criticising announcing the team, and he says, lots of people talking trash, acting like I haven't handcrafted some of the best teams of all time, can't wait to show you guys. And to be fair, since this tweet, in general, it's been pretty good work from the Falcons. They've certainly looked better. I think they've been better than I expected them to be, but, you know, they did still lose, right? So they need to start getting some more series wins on the board, and we'll see how that might look tonight here in a second. The DreamHack event is coming up, of course, next month. So literally next weekend is the event in, well, I mean, I want to say Miami, but it's not really. It's up in Boca Raton, but it is in Florida. And then the event after that, pretty much a month later, is DreamHack Dallas. I did just want to mention this because it's a 3-day tournament, so that's critical to note, that usually we run these tourneys over 4 days, but it's only going to be 3 days. I'm not really sure how that's going to work in terms of how many games are going to be happening in a day, whether they're going to have a Bravo Station 2 or like multiple. I mean, they even mentioned in a couple of stages, right? So potentially even multiple games happening at once. Maybe they need to do it to condense the matches down. I guess we'll see. Initially, when they announced this, the prize pool was said it was going to be 150k, which confused me because the prize pool for all the other majors was 365. Used to be 500, but they've dropped it down this year and hoped that nobody would notice. But there's 365 again for DreamHack Dallas, so that makes a fair bit of sense. But I did want to share this clip here from Sib that was doing the rounds last night, when he was talking on stream about a potential dream organization for him. Now, this, of course, is the case for many players. If you ask pretty much anyone who their dream org is, they're probably going to tell you OpTic. Of course, nowadays, the circumstances can change. Drazah chose FaZe over OpTic, as we know, and, you know, because he wanted the opportunity to win more, and it seems like right now that's working out pretty damn well. But also, for any other player, you know, there's obviously reasons why you'd want to go to OpTic and why you would choose that over any other team, even if Falcons or some other Saudi org, as we think they might, comes knocking with a bigger bag. There's obviously something about playing for OpTic, right? So this is what Sib says on stream yesterday. Just wanted to share this clip for you real quick, because it's definitely interesting in the context of not only OpTic, but also Cloud9 and the way that they currently sit in the league.
OpTic had a spot. Yeah, I mean, like I said before, I mean, my viewers know this is OpTic's definitely one of my, or is my dream team to play for since I'm from Dallas, Texas anyway, so, you know, it's definitely the goal at some point in my career, you know, but you gotta take the proper steps to get there.
So with Cloud9 struggling right now, and with the fact that they probably won't make champs, I mean, Cloud9 could, but certainly the odds are not in their favour. After the defeat yesterday was pretty rough at the hands of Surge. There's questions whether they'll even go into the major with the same team, or, you know, at this point they probably should just turn up to the major with the same roster, see how it goes, because, you know, making a change now, just a couple of days before the event, no practice with the new player, whoever you bring in, maybe not the best idea. So, look, we'll see how Cloud9 get on. Maybe they can make a decent run of the tournament, but they're going to be starting in the losers bracket, as we'll see in a second. The other piece for Cloud9 is that historically as an organisation in other esports too, they do quite like to sell their most valuable players. It's kind of a Cloud9 thing where they'll, you know, sign a good team, but they're not going to keep a player under contract jail. If somebody else wants a good player they have for money, they will let them go. Like, that is the way that Cloud9 tend to operate. So if OpTic come along and they say, look, you know, we'll pay a buyout for Sib of X amount, Cloud9 are one of the organizations that will say, yeah, sure, we'll at least have the conversation and maybe come to a decision on that. So I think that Sib to OpTic is definitely possible, and Sib is probably making it pretty clear that whatever offers might be on the table in the off-season, if an OpTic one comes through, that's where he would like to go. And has he done enough to prove that he's earned the opportunity? I think you would argue that he has done. Would Sib and Dashy work? I mean, like, I'm not gonna lie, from a personality perspective, I would have some questions, not in terms of them clashing, but just more so when you lose Kenny, and I know that Kenny played terribly yesterday, and it's not like OpTic are necessarily going to be mourning his loss too much for now, but a player like Kenny, the mentality that he has, was very valuable for OpTic, and, you know, I won't, like, back down from that opinion that I've had now for some time, that losing Kenny will have will cause problems in the longer term. And maybe that's okay if Kenny's simply not playing well enough to justify it, and I'm not saying that they made the wrong decision. But bringing in Sib and Dashy as an AR combo, you know, I wonder especially depending on what the sub-duo is, what the culture of that team would look like, unless let's say the coaching staff or anything, they really nailed down what they want that team to deliver. But in terms of playstyle, Simp and Dashy, I think they could probably find a way to work it out. And of course, if Cloud9 don't make champs, then the question is, okay, are they going to build around Sib again, or could they let him go to some other team? And also, if there are rumours that are true, that some of these Saudi orgs are coming in, Sib's going to get offers, right? Because if you're Falcons, if you're one of these other teams potentially coming through, Sib is probably, of all the players in the league that are not on the greatest teams, Sib is probably the one man you would try and poach, right? If you could, to try and build a team around. I think it would definitely be an option. There's other good options too. I mean, Rencor speaks pretty good English. You could try and go grab him from Heretics. That's maybe not impossible. There's other players you could try and do a similar thing for, but Sib should certainly be right up there in my opinion. These are the numbers, by the way, for the KDs. HyDra plays today, Cellium plays today, so that could be a deciding factor. I mean, Super could still technically take it if these guys get slammed, but probably not going to be happening. So yeah, these games or these players with the asterisk still have matches to be played, and we'll see them in just a second. Just before we get there was a bit of debate here between Adamu and, well, as he mentioned, CDL, and there's all the other games that their organisation is playing, because Overactive Media, Movistar, KOI, Toronto Ultra, it's all kind of part of the same thing. Now, he actually said this because Tony says, "Hi Adam, I've been wondering about the COD situation as a KOI fan," or KOI, I think they usually call it. "I have the impression that none of the community doesn't really feel Toronto Ultra as part of the fusion." So I kind of, I don't know, I like the Ultra branding from a Call of Duty perspective, but I kind of understand why, if you're someone who is a big fan of KOI and Overactive and all of those brands, Toronto doesn't quite feel part of it. So anyway, Adam says, "Depends on what the CDL wants to do. Right now it's city-based. If it switches to endemic names, G2, FaZe Clan, Gentamates, Cloud9, 100T, we would look to do the same. Our endemic brand is KOI. So at that point, probably Ultra would go and it would become this." So I'm not saying that's great, but I know that a while ago they were debating what they would do if they had the option to change the branding, and it seems like now they've come up with a decision of what they would do, whether you like it or not. And obviously him discussing this means that it's a theory that I've had, and probably others have had for some time, that eventually this will be possible again. Next year, who knows, but of course with the World Cup it is very much possible indeed. But these are the 3 games of the day. So, massive games. Of course, the big one that people are looking for is OpTic versus FaZe. That's always a banger on paper, especially right now, it really should be. Look, I don't know. OpTic, they might struggle here. FaZe are clearly the favourites, but FaZe have also not been playing the best COD over the last couple of weeks, certainly not in the hard points, and yesterday was a little bit of a struggle, let's say, for them to get over the line. And it's a big series for both teams, because both teams kind of need to win for a decent seeding, and if you lose, you may start in losers, and we'll see that in a second. Boston Falcons, an important series of Boston again. If they win this, I think they get to, 4-1 this stage, which would be a great split for them, trying to qualify for champs. Will they win? I think they certainly, I would favour them in the other game modes, but Falcons' hardpoint has been really good, so it's actually pretty tough to call that series. Ravens, it's their first series with Dylan Rex. I'm sure there's going to be nerves, I'm sure there's going to be pressure, and it's a tough baptism of fire to have against, LA Thieves online. And of course, historically, we know that Thieves have no issues beating Ravens. Their respawn record against them this season is absolutely ridiculous. But the real important situation is as follows. So Surge are 4-1, Heretics are 4-1, Toronto are 4-1, Thieves may end the day 4-1, as may Boston. Now, if Boston beat Falcons first game of the day, OpTic are fine. Now, they're not fine in the sense that the 8th seed is not where you want to be, but, maybe they won't end up the 8th seed. But the point stands that because Rocker have 1 win, because Cloud9 have 1 win, because Gentamates have 0 wins, if Falcons were to lose, then OpTic with 2 wins, that's enough, without even considering tiebreakers in terms of map counts and stuff. But if Falcons were to win and get to 2-3, which they very much could do, then it's all to play for, because Falcons have the head-to-head over OpTic, right, because they beat them. But if Ravens were to drop down to 2-3 as well, then it's a 3-way 2-3 tiebreaker, at which point it comes down to more like map counts and stuff like this, which means that if Falcons were to, let's say, win 3-2, or even win 3-0 or whatever, then their map count gets certainly better, but not great. So effectively, the bottom line, I would say, is that OpTic tonight probably need to win 2 maps against FaZe. 2 maps against FaZe should do it. 1 map against FaZe might do it. Getting 3-0'd by FaZe isn't going to do it unless Falcons themselves lose, which is still possible. If FaZe were to lose, they're currently 9-8. So if they were to lose and get, let's say they got 3-0'd by OpTic, they would move to 9-11 map counts. They've got the head-to-head over Falcons, and I think we're presuming that Ravens are probably going to lose to Thieves. They could lose pretty dramatically. So, where FaZe are with their map counts being 1 tick better than OpTic's, that actually does help quite a lot when it comes to potential tiebreakers. And I mean, what's more likely, OpTic getting 3-0'd or FaZe getting 3-0'd? I mean, I think we can probably pick there. So that's how it looks for this evening. It's kind of all to play for, but that first series is critical because if Boston win that one, then OpTic get through to the winners bracket regardless. And to be fair, because it's been such a mess of a few matches, Thieves may, to be fair, end up taking the #1 seed, because if they win emphatically, they will have a very nice map count indeed. So 8th seed for the major could be tough if Thieves win and you play Thieves round 1. But whoever you play round 1, it's better than starting in losers. So hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, take care, and I'll see you next time.